Thank you, James. I think I actually promised 91% inspire and excite, 9% scare the hell out of everybody, yeah? Um, Nice to be here. This is only my first conference. I spend my time with the people trying to build the future of technology, the startup founders, the venture capitalists, the people in the research labs of universities trying to spin research out into companies. And I'm going to share with you a couple of things I'm learning, partly about the accelerating pace of technology and partly about some of the trends that are happening right now, and quite a useful way of understanding what's going to impact us 2 or 3 years down the line is to see what sort of companies are pitching at the demo day of the world's most successful venture builder. It's a team based in San Francisco called Y Combinator, and it's given us companies like Airbnb, Stripe, Dropbox. A few days ago, they had a demo day, and what was striking about this year was almost all the interesting companies were AI applied in a particularly interesting way. And I'll just give you a very quick overview of some of the companies that were pitching on that demo day, one of which was pitching via an AI.
My name is Lena, and I'm the CEO of Infinity AI. Actually, no, I'm not Lena. I'm an AI clone of Lena, and you are watching the first ever AI-generated demo day presentation.
You know, it's not perfect, but you can see the lips sync with the voice, and it's very synthetic. There's another company that used a related technology to help you customize videos large numbers of times. If you have 1,000 new members of staff joining the company, you can have a customized video where you're talking to each of them.
Hey everyone, I'm Ari, engineering manager at Tabis. I have to admit, I was too busy to record this video, so instead, I generated it with my digital replica using a script I wrote. Today, I'm excited to announce the launch.
And again, it's very, very compelling. And I think what I'm noticing is so many business sectors run the risk of being disrupted quite quickly by this technology. If you're running a call center, well, look, the AI in one of the Y Combinator demo pitches is automating that very human-like response.
You asked for me?
Thank you for calling your local DMB. Your hold time is currently 47 days.
So we've got voice and video synthesized. We know with ChatGPT we've got text synthesized, but we've also got all sorts of other sectors being disrupted. This is another startup that was pitching at Y Combinator. This one allows you to tell the AI to design your marketing materials. This one tells you the weather in a very, very tiny part of the city. If you want to see what the weather forecast in a couple of days on that particular street corner is going to be, Atmo AI will do it. It's operating in San Francisco at the moment. It's much more reliable than the standard weather. There's AIs that will help you design physical products. If you want to design a new kind of scanner, maybe a house, it will do all the complicated stuff for you. But again, there's no end to the creative application because this technology is becoming like a utility. It's like electricity. What about this company, EdgeTrace? You type a text prompt into a video database. If you're running CCTV, monitoring a bunch of private buildings, suddenly it's really good at turning text into information in a massive visual data. And I think watching these pitches, I kept thinking, is there a sector that's not going to be affected in the next couple of years by AI? Because there were AI companies pitching that were helping design proteins, Diffuse Bio. There were AI companies that were helping to synthesize chemicals, creating new materials. This is going to matter not just for healthcare, but for creating carbon negative ways to build houses. There were companies doing computational fluid dynamics, using AI. So everything that hasn't got a brain suddenly has new cognitive powers. There's another company that was empowering drones to think for themselves, to work out where to go, to work out how to plan things. This one is called Yondu. And so we've got to the stage very quickly where most of the things that we humans do, the AI is either there, almost there, or is on a path to being there. It can write music. It can make the videos with synthesized characters dancing to the music. You don't believe me? Here is a startup that's doing it for a Bollywood song it wrote and then synthesized the video for.
One little nail, get ready to go. Feel the rhythm, let your body move. Tories open through the night. Everyone's dancing.
No big budget production, no actors, no professional musicians. It's gone crazy. And it's happening at an accelerated pace. So a few months ago, OpenAI, behind ChatGPT, releases something called Sora that allows you to type in a text prompt and you get video. Somebody typed in, I want a moving picture of a dog on a beach in Maui, Hawaii, taking selfies in a certain style. It's pretty high quality. It also allows you to take a couple of videos and then merge them and see in real time what the AI creates. We've gone past the language barrier. If you have customers in the Middle East, but you're not really targeting Romania, Bulgaria, no longer a problem. You can translate in real time, and if you're doing a sales pitch, the lip sync can happen in real time. Mark Zuckerberg doesn't speak Hindi. He was interviewed by the podcaster Lex Friedman. Look what's happening to the lip sync and the sound.
वन टेक्स्ट आधारित सोशल नेटवर्क पर क्या सुधार कर सकते हैं?
बाहरी दृष्टिकोण से विशेष आलोचनाओं को प्रदान करना हमेशा काफी कठिन होता है.
Not perfect, but getting there. Now, there's always a dark side with these technologies, and I'm not going to dwell on the gloom. And it's going to be a challenge for, election cycles, for teams who are being told in quite a credible way by the boss to transfer funds to a new bank account. But I'm going to share, I guess, 3 kind of top-line observations I'm getting talking to a lot of the people building in this field. And we have heard this phrase for a while. The data that we're outputting is growing at incredible exponential rates. Everything that was analog we know has been digitized, but the human body and all our data outputs, bioinformatics, measuring nature as part of the journey to net zero, everything is data, and it needs to be organized. And we haven't got there yet, which is why I think it's a very big opportunity for your world. Because once we have data that's captured, that can be interrogated, that can give us patterns, it can make us more productive. This is, I'm going to give you, the original time information wants to be free was said. It was at a hacker conference 40 years ago, 1984. There was a guy called Steve Wozniak who was at a little startup called Apple. And he was raising the issue about who controls information. And this is a guy called Stuart Brand, one of the founders of, I guess, the popular internet, ran a publication called the Whole Earth Catalog. And there's only this copy, I think, around, so Getty Images has owned it and put its name on it. But it's quite an interesting discussion. I'll just give you a few seconds of it. Don't hear him speak. Well, he's saying information wants to be almost free. But then Steve Wozniak says, yes, but our time is valuable. And it's this tension between increasingly technology will put things out there but we want to be productive. We want engagement on our own terms. And we're starting to get that. Increasingly, there's evidence that digitizing information provides really high economic returns. The Natural History Museum of London, the original dinosaur institution, embarked on an £80 million digitization project. It starts scanning all, the fruit flies, the fossils. It was a multi-year project. They had a report from an economic forecasting consultant that worked out, actually, this has generated maybe £2 billion in extra benefit because this information could be used to help discover new medicines, to help with mineral exploration, to help understand the risks of invasive species or a future pandemic. And until they digitized, until they'd scanned, until they found ways to interrogate all this information, this productivity, this potential value was lost. And we're at that interesting moment where we're starting to understand where the value lies in what was just stagnant information. New York Times having a bit of a fight with OpenAI, saying you're using our archive to train your language models. Now we're starting to get a picture that old media is going to be earning quite a lot of money by renting access to its database of language to the people training the large language models. So we haven't yet worked out what the economic value is, but we know in this new AI-led world, anything that can be scanned and turned into searchable information has potentially disproportionate value. The second thing I'm noticing is this is only going to get faster and faster. This is the little guy, Jensen Huang, who runs a company called NVIDIA, which is probably the biggest beneficiary of this revolution in the short term. This is an exponential curve showing over the last 8 years how many teraflops, essentially a measure of computational power, its chips could enable. And it's extraordinary. And in fact, if the first time you had the conference here in 2008, you had put $10,000 in his company, NVIDIA, today you'd have $4 million because you want to bet on those exponentials. And I find it really useful to try and understand where the future's going, not where the hype is going, is to identify those exponential curves where there's a doubling and doubling and see where we are on those curves. And once you start looking for them, you see them everywhere. This is one of my favorites at the moment. An exponential curve showing the total number of space launches. Look, Elon discovered how to make a rocket reusable. The price comes right down. Lots more space launches. The price comes down for anybody who wants to send something up into orbit. Let's say I want to send satellites up and create a new way to deliver internet connectivity. The price has gone from tens of millions to tens of thousands. Disrupts the people who have laid the fiber optic cable to deliver internet. If I want to do a science experiment in zero gravity, it's now a couple of thousand. So, unintended consequences of this kind of technology mean because of zero gravity, we might be one step closer to discovering medicines that we didn't know we were going to get. Everywhere you look, there are these curves of growth in what was possible. Another of Elon's projects, Neuralink, involves trying to read the electrical signals when somebody's thinking. They've started by putting chips into the brains of people who are paralyzed so they can think and move objects like in a video game.
It was like using the force on a cursor.
Now, I'm not saying we're all going to have chips in our brain, but as you get better and better at measuring the electrical signals, maybe at some stage there'll be a cap or something we wear that means our thoughts are connected directly to the network. It's no crazier than running your hand around a little bit of glass and magic happening. And then at the same time, robotics is advancing, and also in a way where the robots are learning. I mean, this is San Diego Airport where the robot is being the barista, but everywhere you look, there's a similar trend happening. And I guess the third thing I feel, having seen a lot of this happening, don't worry, it's only now beginning. You're not too late. This is the first editor of American Wired, Kevin Kelly, and he wrote a great essay 10 years ago called "You Are Not Late." And he was reflecting how 20 years earlier in 1994, when the World Wide Web was just getting going, he was running Wired magazine, and a few of the journalists wanted to see which domain names they could register because corporates weren't yet interested. They registered Coca-Cola.com, they registered McDonald's.com, and then they called up McDonald's and said, "We've got your internet address, would you like it?" First of all, it took them hours getting through to the right person, and then when they did, she laughed. "We sell burgers, why would we want a computer address?" And he was saying then, you thought all the opportunities were still ahead, and now, in 2014, it's too late. But he said from now, let's say 10 years ahead, which is today, people are going to look ahead. Well, we're not wearing holodecks. We're not wearing virtual reality contact lenses yet. But that will be the beginnings of what's possible. And he said, today, 2014, this is the time to start planning the future. This is when the next trillion-dollar companies are going to be built, because the barriers have collapsed. There are opportunities everywhere. This is the moment. And I think a lot about that essay, because I think we don't yet know who the entrepreneurs are who are going to dominate the next decade, whose technologies are going to transform our health, the length of our lives, the way we decarbonize. But all the tools are there. And the cost of accessing these tools is falling. And the hybrid teams thinking how we can use what will be like electricity AI. But they're just getting started on it. So just going back to a couple of those themes, I'm seeing the early adopters measuring stuff that doesn't make sense. I've got a lot of friends who are now wearing continuous glucose monitors who aren't diabetic or pre-diabetic. They just want to see, using apps, what their body's response is to each avocado, each banana, each peanut they eat. Because everybody's microbiome, everybody's way of processing food is different. And they're collecting large databases of how their body responds. I'm seeing companies collecting data to quantify the impact of their work on nature, on biodiversity. There's a whole new set of regulations pushing everybody from real estate developers to industrial factory owners to measure with sensors in the ground, with satellites and drones, diversity of species, quality of water, quality of air. It's all feeding into these enormous databases. And as we already heard, the idea of the office, the workplace, well, that's kind of been a bit diluted. But everybody who's out there on the network wants access to everything right now. They want that convenience. They want to be productive. And they want the tools that you have inside the big corporate city towers. They want the data and the processing tools, which is why I think you're in the right place. And there will be change. And the idea of how people are working, we don't really lament the loss of this, but this was the norm not that long ago. There will be a transition, there will be some adaptation, there will be the need to retrain people to ensure fairness, to ensure people aren't left behind. And this idea that it's going to get faster and faster is also about not just one tech, but lots of convergent technologies coming together. AI plus robotics plus new ways to access data. I think the biggest risk is we're humans, and humans get scared of change, and that can sometimes hold us back from doing what is obvious to build on Kevin Kelly's idea of the next 10 years of great opportunity. Sometimes it seems that tech is moving so fast, it's a bit out of control.
This morning, this video going viral, showing a self-driving car being pulled over by police in San Francisco.
Listen, crazy.
The car was pulled over because it was driving at night without headlights on. At first, it looks like an ordinary traffic stop. An officer gets out of his car to speak to the driver, only to discover
and nobody in it.
And then the car speeds away from the officers, passing through an intersection.
I don't know about you, but I would rather be in that self-driving car than in the Uber, because it's gone over the red traffic light because it knows it's safer. It has sensors, whereas the humans are the ones who are high risk. And yet Cruise, that company that operates the car, took those cars off the street because there was some protests that maybe they were dangerous. And things moved quickly. OpenAI, then a non-profit, only 3 years ago, released something called DALL-E. Little text prompt box. You could type in what you wanted and you get a picture. And it was pretty basic. Didn't change the world. A year later, we got the first of the video text prompts. This one's called Runway. About 2 years ago, you could type something in and you got from a database that predicted what you were looking for. Something playful, but this is never going to replace the Hollywood studio. And then a few months ago, somebody who works in a Hollywood studio wanted to see if the tools were getting good enough for him to make a Pixar-quality film trailer for less than $200. He goes by the name Jeff Synthesized. He doesn't want his identity out there. And he created this.
From Neo Cinema, the studio you've never heard of, who are behind Synthetica and the Fifth Kind, brings you the first ever scripted AI animation with real-life actors. If we get 100,000 likes, we'll make more of this, and this, and maybe even...
Didn't pay actors.
Maybe not that.
It's not their voices, it's all synthetic. At $200. And then a couple of months later, one of these companies, 11 Labs, released the language translation tool that you can dub your lips at the same time. And he thought, well, let's see if, just as a consumer, I can create a Spanish version of what I'm doing.
Now let me guess your system. About me. Give me a sec. Un segundo, amigo.
Estoy elevando tu caso ahora, señor. Por favor, espera un momento para un poco de música de ascensor y una posible experience.
So the barriers to entry have just collapsed. And if you're a Hollywood studio, if you're a TV advertising company, you've got new competition. And this fear of disruption is hitting the biggest of them. There's a big company that relies on somebody typing into a search box and they serve advertising that's now slightly anxious that it's been left behind, because if you don't have to go to a homepage that says Google on it and type in that box, what if you just talk to the voice AI and it finds what you want? Then maybe its billions of revenue are threatened. About this time last year, there was the developers conference that Google held, and the boss, Sundar Pichai, gave a talk I'm not going to give you the full 14 minutes. I'll give you like 14 key seconds. See if you can spot his subtle message in this talk.
AI, generative AI, generative AI, generative AI, AI as AI, 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 AI. It uses AI to bring AI, 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 AI.
Did you spot that? We're not going to get left behind. And I know it's painful to be disrupted. I've been disrupted. I wrote a book with a rude word in the title. I'll show it for about half a second so it's not going to cause problems. And I was asked by the publisher Penguin to record the audiobook version, which I did for 3 days in an airless room in West London. And then I realized after I'd done it, an AI could have done it in 10 minutes.
Imagine turning your book into an audiobook in just 10 minutes. Now you can using audiobook.ai for 10 times less than paying a voice talent. All you have to do is upload your book to audiobook.ai, select a voice from over 30 natural...
And this is a synthetic voice reading this.
You can download your...
And then I realized I didn't even need to write the book at all, and AI could have written it for me. So you've got AI plus the acceleration of the rollout of robotics. This is how many Amazon is using. And the robots are learning. This is one of Google's projects. You just tell the robot, bring me the rice box, and it starts to get feedback loops and it starts to become useful. This is one of, let me show you Elon's Tesla robots. I don't know if this is going to change the world, but it might mean you won't have to leave all those shirts on the back of the chair because it will fold them. But they're taking it seriously. They're investing seriously inside Tesla. They're calling this Optimism. And every sector is going to be affected by this. This is a Dutch company that's using robots to build walls because it's not easy to hire the right number of construction staff. This is how we're going to be cleaning hotel rooms in the future. This is agriculture. Drones with computer vision that know which apples are ripe, and then it will take them. And we're getting new ways to immerse people in these new multidimensional worlds. And I'm not saying the Apple Vision Pro has yet made us think, wow, it's going to change our lives. But incrementally, these things are getting better and better. And it does mean we can create this sense that we're in a simulated space together that's almost like being real. There's a company in London called Improbable that makes simulated worlds. They're working with Major League Baseball in the US to have hundreds of thousands of people feel they're at the game. You can select which... And there's an economic model there. You can pay for virtual goods in this game. If you're a fan of the club, but you're the other side of the world, you can pay maybe to be closer to where the action is.
Welcome inside.
The AI is starting to become emotionally sensitive.
What am I expressing right now?
I'm sensing a mix of amusement and excitement with a hint of confusion.
What about now?
This is an AI called Evie by a startup called Hume that starts to understand your emotional feeling at that moment.
It's important.
So lots is going on at the same time, and it converges, and we don't know where it's going to go. Those brain-computer interfaces, games companies are investing in. Zuckerberg is investing in. I don't want Mark Zuckerberg to know what's going through my head. But if you think about how quickly this is happening with everything having cognition potentially attacked, whole systems that decide to run themselves with AI, a sense that you are in a different place, a virtual place. You've got neural interfaces, you've got growth in quantum computing and space and blockchains and personalization. It must be very hard to write science fiction now. Do you remember 10 years ago there was this movie, Her? Scarlett Johansson's voice was the AI, and Joaquin Phoenix was a divorced man who fell in love with his AI voice assistant, and unfortunately she had 5,000 other boyfriends.
I feel really close to her. Like when I talk to her, I feel like...
So that was fun 10 years ago. Guess what? Now it's happening. It's just a whole bunch of startups offering virtual girlfriends, virtual boyfriends, and reality is what fiction was. Which takes me back to this idea that this is the moment. So the first time I went on the World Wide Web, this is what it looked like. It was 1994. This is a browser called Mosaic that the next year became Netscape, and it was black and white, text only, no pictures, no moving pictures. But I knew then that this is kind of amazing, because someday there would be pictures and moving pictures, and maybe somebody might trade things. This is what Yahoo looked like at the time. And I think the reason it became amazing is because there's a clear exponential curve. You, at some stage, wouldn't have to dial up on a telephone line. There would be faster bandwidth. It would be cheaper. So when I was running wired, trying to understand where the future was going to come from, I often looked for those exponential curves. And somebody sent me a photo from 1956 of 5 megs of computer storage from IBM being uploaded to the cloud. And I realized that's now one picture on your iPhone. And there's this trend that's hitting all sorts of aspects of the economy, where stuff that was super expensive goes free. So look for those curves. This is the acceleration that we're in. This is the number of apps that get to, or how quickly they get to 1 million users. OpenAI, 5 days. Twitter was 2 years, Facebook, 10 months. Getting to 100 million users, ChatGPT took 2 months. WhatsApp, 3 years. Telegram, 3 years. So whenever you can see one of these exponential curves, you know something is about to transform. Logarithmic scale, this is the falling cost of solar energy over the last 50 years. Again, logarithmic scale, the falling cost of sequencing DNA. The start of the century, $100 million to sequence a person, now $10, $20. And the thing about exponential curves is you can ignore them for a bit, but it's dangerous for too long. The orange curve, total value of cryptocurrency up until about the middle of 2021, at which stage the blue line, total value of dollars in circulation, was eclipsed by crypto. Now, if you're a bank or a government, you can ignore it there and there and there and there, but it soon becomes the new norm. And the most powerful exponential curve I've seen for a long time is this one, which measures the AI's ability to do things as well as or better than a human. And it's, from the last 25 years, the blue is handwriting. It took a while to get the black line as good as human, but look at what's happening now. The ability to write code, whoosh. The ability to do common sense answers, whoosh. Never bet against those curves. So finally, I'm going to do what any self-respecting speaker will do, which is get ChatGPT to write the rest of my presentation. So I did ask ChatGPT to help your world understand how AI is going to affect the business of scanning, processing, understanding information. And the thing about ChatGPT is it's predictive. It takes the basis of knowledge that's out there and it kind of works out the most likely predictions. And this may not surprise you, but it's quite useful seeing it all codified. So there's going to be automation of the extraction, classification, and indexing of all sorts of data. It's going to speed things up. Increased accuracy and quality control. A new ability to offer predictive insights based on historic data in healthcare to predict things. You'll be able to personalize and customize to each particular customer. Make things more secure. Data security is going to be a huge opportunity. And also bring down costs. And I said, okay, productivity is going to be quite important. How can RICO, PFU, how can you use it to boost client productivity? And again, there's an awful lot of automating, of making things much more searchable using natural language process, optimizing workflow processes, customized dashboards, helping with compliance. Again, we're just at the beginning. You are not late. And business models as well. I start to ask ChatGPT, is it going to be simply selling a unit and then maybe charging for extra services? Well, There's all sorts of approaches being considered: data as a service, analytics as a service, subscription-based pricing, new kind of integration of partnerships. Again, nobody's sorted this out, but there's an open goal. There's lots to play for. I did have to ask the ultimate geek question. Still not there yet. Apparently, behavioral resistance to getting rid of all paper. But number two, perception that paper documents are still more secure. But I think the trend is in your favor. And I'm going to leave you, because nobody reads books, with a couple of things I noticed. I went to about 20 countries talking to people who had, in their big organizations, in their government departments, found ways to optimize the chance of good innovation resulting. I'll give you a couple of examples that may be helpful. So these are the two winners of the Nobel Prize for Medicine this year. They didn't know each other when they met in the line to use the photocopier at the University of Pennsylvania, and they got into a conversation and started thinking, maybe we should collaborate. And they came up in their collaboration with the mRNA vaccination. They wouldn't have done that had they not met. So one of the ways to ensure proper innovation is to find a place that serendipity can happen, even the physical design of a workspace, which is why I worry about people who don't go into an office. That's how ideas collide. And you also need people who think differently working on a project. The people who made the Waymo self-driving car at Google X, the moonshot part of Google, they always insist in their teams they don't just have science people and engineers, but also people with very different thought processes, a former ballerina, an origami expert. So make sure you are visiting the crypto event if you think it's not your kind of scene, because you'll start to see how they think. You also need to take risks to play. So when I came here 5 or 6 years ago, I met the world's first minister for AI. And he was 26, and it was like, why would a country organize a ministry of AI? Why would it have a minister in charge? It turns out to have been one of the most prescient ways for a government to plan to be in the right place in the future, helping ensure every government department is collecting and processing data to improve services, to make sure the universities are teaching the skills of tomorrow, to make sure the talent is ready for tomorrow. And I guess finally, you need to build an ecosystem. You're not going to do it just with your own team, because knowledge is everywhere. The founder of the Chinese phone company Xiaomi, this is Lei Jun, talks about an ecosystem. So they invested in hundreds of startups making accessories that become best-selling, but they don't invest a large amount of money in the accessory companies. They just give those startups access to their customers. They make a bit of margin. They put their logo on the air purifiers and the battery packs. But it gives the customers another reason every day to come and see what's new. And their ecosystem, as they call it, has given them a massive commercial advantage. We put him on the front of Wired saying it's time to copy China. But I'm going to leave you the one problem in all this, which is that we are still human. And we are scared of these technologies. That time you are in the self-driving car for the first time, you may not be entirely comfortable. You might want... Farrell has called something. She's saying, no, get me out of it, get me out of it. Oh, it's not possible. In a couple of weeks, it will just be another way for her to go and play cards with her friends. So I will leave you, but not before I've said thank you to ChatGPT for doing my work. And I also worried that as a speaker, I'm going to be disrupted again by the AI. I got its answer and I put it into a synthetic voice.
A language model. I can provide information and assistance to help with various tasks, but I cannot replace the experience and expertise of a human keynote speaker. Keynote speakers bring unique perspectives and insights to their presentations, and their ability to connect with their audience on a personal level is an important part of the speaking.
I hope we've connected on a personal level.
While technology can augment and enhance the work of keynote speakers, it cannot fully replicate the human connection.
Still in the game.
It's so vital.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you, David. Does anyone have any quick questions for David? We could take one or two if anyone's got any questions. No? Oh, yes, one over here. You're welcome.
I'm Sebastian, and I'm just worried about one more exponential curve, and that's our energy consumption. Do you have any, because it's all interconnected with all the exponential curves you showed? So maybe you have an opinion on that.
It's a really live issue. As we're processing more, as the machine is serving us in all sorts of new ways, how are we going to power it? The good news is there's a lot of very smart, scientifically literate people working on things. I'm running a community of people trying to develop climate technologies, and there's 2 or 3 different teams in that community trying to build nuclear fusion, which I think at the moment we don't know if is possible, but if it is, that will solve it. But in incremental ways, there are people designing chips that are more energy efficient. There are people designing carbon negative materials. There are economic models where startups are funding themselves by creating biochar, which sucks carbon into what could be used in building, and the building company will pay them for doing that. I think we have to be optimists. We have a choice, but I choose to be an optimist. And the urgency of the problem and the fact that it's going to affect all of us, plus science can kind of solve it with enough smart minds and resources, lead me to think maybe 5 years' time, maybe 10 years' time, maybe a bit longer, we'll be here in our fusion-powered auditorium thinking about new problems. And if I'm wrong, I tried.